spooky.
Right? As usual, like we don't really have an answer to anything that we're talking about. Don't even get me started on aliens. So, do you believe in ghosts? What about magic? Today is October 31st, Halloween. On this episode of the Manque, your hosts, me, Monica Bush, and our photo editor, Mary Stathos, the people behind Manque magazine, talk all things spooky, creepy, and just plain weird. Okay, so Halloween is this week, obviously, and I just had a Halloween party, which you attended, and that was really fun for the most part. I think there were some ups and downs, but overall, it was pretty good. We got a lot of awesome pictures, which is definitely a goal when it comes to Halloween parties. And as we're recording this, Halloween is like 4 days away, 3 or 4 days away.
Yes, you always need to get photo shoots.
Weird because since we had the party, I'm kind of like, oh, Halloween is over, but it hasn't actually happened yet, which I feel like happens a lot with not Halloween parties, but holiday parties. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I did all the festivities. It's Thanksgiving now. But earlier I was listening to this like paranormal podcast that I listen to all the time. And they were like talking about the basic lore around Halloween, where it's supposed to be like the spirit world and the physical human world are very close, or the membrane is thinner or something. And it kind of re-spooked me out because they were talking about a lot of scary stuff. And it made me kind of almost feel like a sense of dread about the coming holiday instead of the excitement that I've been feeling, which may have just been in anticipation of this party that we had. I say we because you helped like paint my walls literally beforehand. I would say it was also a little bit your party. Yeah. I'm upstairs getting ready, and Nate comes upstairs and he's like, Mary is a saint. And I was like, what? And he was like, she is rolling paint right now. And the party was set to start in like 20 minutes. You weren't even dressed. You're just painting my kitchen. Much appreciated. But like your makeup was perfectly done. So there's a very like, dissonant image. But in any event, so Halloween's coming up. I'm going to spend it watching not Sweeney Todd, Rocky Horror Picture Show with Nate. That's what I'll do. Probably have like a drink and a bunch of candy. Do you have any Halloween plans?
I have a 7-year-old sister, so I will. Oh, right. My family is doing a Harry Potter theme.
So are you dressing up as Harry Potter characters?
Yes.
You yourself?
What are you going to do? She's Hermione. My stepdad is being Dumbledore. He has the giant beard. My mom is Harry Potter. She has the wig and the glasses. My sister is being Hermione when she drinks the polyjuice potion.
Oh, the cat, like when she turns into a cat?
And I haven't decided.
It's the most thing. That is so on brand for like you, your family. I love it.
Look. Yeah.
That's very awesome.
I'm still deciding what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Do you have any idea what you're leaning towards?
I'm thinking like Bellatrix Lestrange.
She's been on my big list for Halloween costumes.
It's like a good one.
It is. Love her. I just love that actress. Like I'll watch anything that she does.
Yes.
Oh, also, so we had the Halloween party, so we dressed up, so we were already something so far. And I'm not going to do another costume, I don't think. I might wear a witch hat if we actually have trick-or-treaters, because I have one in my closet like a normal person. But I was Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and Nate was the Dark Lord, aka Satan. And that was fun.
If you've ever seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, I was Deandra from the Halloween episode, where like they keep retelling the same story throughout the whole episode, and every time they tell it, her costume is perceived more and more like she's actually a bird. So I was Deandra dressed up as an angel, being perceived as a bird with like with like feathers sewn all over a dress. It was pretty funny. I was very proud of it.
Didn't you say they were turkey feathers too?
They were, yes. The only yellow Amazon Prime available feathers were turkey feathers, which is odd, but they were like $3 for. I have this like pretty good sized bag.
Oh my goodness. And your cats haven't gotten into them yet, which is a miracle.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Was that the mess you came home to on Sunday? So yeah, Halloween's coming up. We did the party. I've eaten definitely a lot of candy. My house is still super decorated. I'm sitting in front of a skeleton and like a bloody keep out jelly thing hanging from a mirror and lots of cobwebs. This was the beer pong room though, however. So some of them did get knocked down, but nothing too bad. Actually, the last time I was sitting in here was when everyone was playing beer pong until an ungodly hour. And I personally hate beer pong, but I was definitely like in it enough to just sit there and like take pictures and be like, okay, it's the end of the night. I know this isn't going to be the whole thing, but I just personally hate beer pong. God, I just hate beer pong. I like wouldn't set up the table until someone said they wanted to play.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, cool.
I
Were you awake for that?
No, I got up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, or what I perceived to be the middle of the night, only for everyone to still be completely wide awake, drinking, playing the game.
Yes,
and I was like,
I remember up the stairs, and I don't know what I was doing. I was grabbing something from my room, I think, and then you like came around the corner, and I was like, "Whoa, hello! You went to bed so long ago."
Like from the depths of my sleep.
Like, I have to pee. I was like, okay, good luck. So what's interesting about the fact that I just threw this Halloween party, to me anyways, is that I actually was not allowed to celebrate Halloween growing up, like at all. So I've only trick-or-treated twice in my entire life. First Halloween, I should find this picture because I do have it. My parents dressed me up as a pumpkin, and I was a pretty cute pumpkin, I think. Like it was a big round pumpkin costume, I think, in my memories, and I had the little green hat. But I don't remember trick-or-treating doing that because I was so little. And then my dad, as we talked about in the previous episode, it was super religious, like fundamentalist. And so he became more zealous as I grew up. In the span of that like 2-year period from when I was born, he decided that Halloween was no longer allowed in the house because it was evil. So that was that. Like so much so that he would like, when he remembered, because he is not very good at remembering things all the time, he would go to my teachers and be like, Monica's not allowed to do Halloween activities, and they would have to like give me alternative activities. Usually they were fall oriented, so I got really good at like writing poems about fall and like things like that because I couldn't like do sentences about witches or vampires or anything. But of course that just made me want to do it like really, really badly because all my friends were, and it was everywhere, Halloween stuff. So, did you do like stupid Halloween parties when we were at Emmanuel?
Yes. So, like, for those who are listening who did not go to Emmanuel, we didn't have, like, sororities. We were not allowed to. So instead, we had, like, sports houses. Like, that was how we referred to things. Like, how some people go to, like, Kappa Delta Pi, whatever. We would go to
Well, the cool
volleyball
kids did anyways.
house.
I never did. I think it was sophomore year, and I didn't know it was a Halloween party. My lovely girlfriends at the time were like, let's go to a party. And maybe it was the weekend before Halloween, but I was young and I hadn't been doing this. So I didn't realize that was like gonna guaranteed be a Halloween party. It just didn't even cross my mind because people drink all the time in college. So I sort of reasoned without knowing, like, people are just gonna have Halloween parties on Halloween no matter what the day is. Like, this is just a random Saturday. So I get to my friend's dorm, and because I didn't live on campus, and I get to my friend's dorm and everyone's in costume, and I'm like, yo, girl, like, you did not tell me to bring a costume. You didn't even mention it. Like, I feel like you would have at least mentioned it. Like, I would not assume that someone knows that a party is a costume party. So I get to her, not her house, her dorm, and she's like, let's see what we can do. And like, she was like a party girl, and so she actually had random stuff on hand, and she basically, I was like a sexy cowgirl, which is to say, I borrowed a pair of her shorts, her jean shorts, and like tied up a little like flannel plaid thing. I don't think I even had a hat. I think I might have put my hair in braids. I have no idea. I think it was an MIT frat because they had some frat houses that were like strangely close to our school, even though they weren't super close to our school. And it was insane. And it completely convinced me to never go to a frat party again. That was the first and last frat party I ever went to. Not because anything happened per se, but because the vibe was terrible. Like, I just did not know what I was walking into. And like, we get into this like tall house and we go upstairs to wherever the party is actually happening. And it's in this dark room. And I don't remember if the walls were black or if I just remember them black, but there was a stripper pole like up on a platform, like clearly designed, like it was up on a huge stage. Like, it was insanity. And it was just crazy frats running around. And I think this was the year that, you know, those like full body jumpsuits that pull over your face that got really popular. I think that was like the year they took off. So there were several frat boys in those, and they were still very new, and I was very uncomfortable. Like I was like a burgeoning feminist at the time, and I was like, this seems very rapey. Like this doesn't seem like a good idea to have a bunch of drunk college boys cover their faces and dance around girls. No, because of course it was like only girls allowed or whatever. Though we did bring one boy who I will not name because of his current job, and he he's a nice enough kid. We were young, and his costume wasn't like the worst thing. It was very funny, but it was very in line with his personality. Sorry if you ever listen to this, you know who you are. He wore just like a normal outfit that I remember, and he had a giant like magnet around his neck, so like a red horseshoe, like you would imagine a magnet looks like, and he was covered in baby chicks. He was a chick magnet. But he, for some reason, went to this frat party with us and a group of girls, and he was the only guy. And I don't know why, because he, as far as I know, he likes girls. It just seems like a very strange decision to make. But so he was there. But otherwise, it was just a bunch of us random girls. And I don't think anyone knew anyone who was hosting this party. And it was just insanity. And I was like, okay, one and done with that. Never going back to this situation again.
That has to be one of the weirdest things about college parties is like when you're an adult, you would not go somewhere like without an invitation or like a word from the host. Even if it's like a more crazy party, like I can think of like parties that I went to like more recently post grad. There were people I didn't really know, but it would always be like, oh, let me check to see if you can come.
One time, this is like my favorite cop coming to a party story. I went to UMass with my friends. I went with one friend who wasn't going there, but we had a bunch of friends from high school who were there. And I never spent any time at UMass. So
yeah,
Mary and I went, for those who don't know, to a very small private liberal arts college. So we had parties, but it was a dry campus at the time. So the parties that were on campus were only like no more than 10 people in a room drinking. And like, that's if you had a suite, like it was usually smaller than that. So we didn't have like on campus massive house parties. You had to leave campus for that. So I didn't really do a lot of that stuff. So when I went to UMass, this was the first time I'd been to like a situation where several people were renting a house in college and throwing a huge party. And that was a crazy party. That was like the first time I saw like people doing like questionable things, like drug stuff, like in front of me that I was like very uncomfortable with, like beyond just like smoking pot. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, this is like a movie. Like this is like actually what happens. And I'm like, whatever, you know, I'm probably like had a few drinks, just hanging out. Totally fine. The cops got called eventually. And I think it was a noise issue, but because this was UMass, I'm pretty sure there were a lot of underage people. So like it was an issue in that regard. But so the cops get called, and the hosts of the party have this great solution. And it's an older house. So there's a big living room and a kitchen, a dining area, and there are sliding doors, pocket doors between the living room and the dining room, I believe it was. So their idea was to put everyone at the party in the room behind the pocket doors. Like there probably were no fewer than 30 people at this house, and we all pile into this small, I mean, for 30 people room, and they slide the pocket door shut, and they're just like, be quiet. So everyone is drunk, standing like sardines together in this room, all like trying desperately not to laugh out loud. And like jokes are flying left and right, like under our breath. And we hear the police come in, and I'm just thinking like, we're screwed. There's no way in hell this is going to pass muster. Like there's no way. They're like, and sure enough, you know, after a couple of minutes, I think it was a police officer or it was one of the hosts, slides the door open. There's this room full of undergrads just standing together. It was just incomprehensible to me. And then so the police literally formed like formed us on a line, essentially. Had us file out in single file out the door. They were like, everybody go. And I'm just like looking at my feet, like, please don't ask me questions. Please don't ask me questions. Because I just lived in constant fear of like getting in legal trouble and like having that mess up my life. Like very intense fear of that. And then we went to a diner, me and a couple of my friends, and we listened to Fergie, and it was like good, but it was just like the weirdest like experience, and not at all related to Halloween, but it was fall in New England, so I guess it's always Halloween, especially I feel like if you're in college. But so there was that. But in any event, I guess one of the things we wanted to talk about here was how Halloween relates to like supernatural freaky stuff. And so for me, I like love the idea of the paranormal, or I'm very interested in it is probably a better way to say it. But that's not really the case for you, right? Like you seem kind of indifferent to the whole concept of like ghosts or things like that.
I'm like relatively indifferent, but always unsure, I feel like.
Right.
So I have like a good story about this. So I'm I think very like logic based in the way that I think. And it's sort of, I feel like I don't quite have enough evidence to believe that it's true. And therefore, like, ghosts and like supernatural things are not real. However, I become like skeptical when I hear things that are like convincing. So like I'll consider it and entertain it, but like ultimately like I go with the one that has more facts, which is like how my brain seems to operate. So when I was a sophomore in college, my grandfather died. Like he had a heart attack, died relatively unexpectedly, relatively young. And my mom, so this is my mom's dad, and she has 4 siblings, and her dad and her youngest brother were very, very close. So when my grandfather died, my uncle took a lot of his things. He took specifically like a big painting that he had hanging up in his house, and he took a lot of his clothes, and he took like his leather jacket that he always used to wear. And so he wears this stuff all the time and like just has it, whatever. And one night he is going to go out and he's wearing the leather jacket, and the painting that he has hung up from my grandfather's house falls. And he's like, oh, that's so weird that it fell, because it was like secured so well and it's never fallen before. And sorry, my cat is like attacking me. And he goes out to the bar and he's out with like only his friends, and there are people at the bar who are making fun of him, calling him Arthur Fonzarelli, like from Happy Days, saying like, oh, like you look like such an idiot wearing this like old man jacket. And my uncle is young. He's like 30 something.
What?
And so then like a couple of weeks later, and I think from my understanding, he never really mentioned any of these things until after the fact, but my uncle had this like long-term girlfriend, and her grandmother died, and she decided to go to a medium, and she's like why is someone saying like Arthur Fonzarelli to me? Like, what's the significance of like Arthur Fonzarelli or Happy Days? And she's like, I have no idea. Like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, someone just wants me to tell you that like that night with Arthur Fonzarelli that like I was there, and like I dropped the painting so that you knew that I was like watching you. She is like, none of this makes sense. Like, this is all made up. Like, mediums are like BS, whatever. And she goes and she tells my uncle, and he's like hysterical, crying.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
We were raised to believe in demons, and like we believed in witches, I guess, to an extent. Like we believed that there are people who practice witchcraft, but we basically thought it was devil worshipping. So it's kind of strange to grow up believing in that, but also feel like it was sort of like an intersection of it's not real, but also it is, and it's bad if it is real, was sort of the way that it was taught to me, which is like a very confusing way to, because it's a binary issue. So it's like, if there's a heaven, there has to be a hell sort of thing. And so like, if all the good stuff is bad, then the bad stuff must be, I mean, if all the good stuff is real, then the bad stuff must also be real. So I grew up with like scary stories from my dad about how like demons are probably real and all of this junk. But I definitely, which I think is common, have grown up with a lot of stories, particularly on my mom's side, about like women, especially in the family, having like premonitions and things like that, and experiences with ghosts. I've never had anything like super, super real happen to me, but I've had some questionable things happen to me. But some of the stories that I grew up with, like my grandmother on my mom's side, used to tell this story where her sister was like coming home from school and she got hit by a bus, and her mother, my grandmother's mother, so my great grandmother, was in the kitchen like doing dishes or whatever, like just like dealing with life. And she said something like, I think it was my Aunt Ruthie. She was like, Ruthie's hurt. And they were like, what do you mean? And then Ruthie came literally like crawling in the side door, like covered in blood because she had like gotten thrown, but survived enough to like walk away because this would have been before people had cell phones and we're going to call 911 and things like that. And it was like, whoa, okay. So like you knew that was going to happen or that it had happened. So I grew up hearing stuff like that. And then also like my grandmother would tell me that she saw my grandfather after he died. She said that she saw him, I think one time she like woke up and he was standing in her bedroom and she just stared at him. She told me that. And then my aunt also told me that she saw her dad standing, just like full apparition in her kitchen a few years ago. And then like very shortly after that, she was diagnosed with cancer and she's in remission now, but she's convinced that her dad appeared to her as like a sign of comfort and warning sort of at the same time, like something crazy is about to happen and she got cancer. So those are like the big stories that stick out to me. I mean, also that same aunt swore up and down that she had a ghost in her living room when she lived in Tennessee, and like under the premise that it was a Civil War like battleground area. And I never saw that ghost, but I have seen the picture of the ghost that they took on their cell phones, and that looked real. That was probably one of the most convincing things I've ever seen in my life. It was just like a flip phone, but because this would have been like 2007 or whatever. And there is clearly a figure standing in front of the window or in front of the door to in their living room, which has the window, I believe. And he's wearing like very clearly wearing like knickers. Like it's like very clear. But it's like it's white. It's like a white bright light that is clearly in the shape of a person wearing like knicker pants. It blows my mind. Like even thinking about it now, I'm like, I don't know how to ever make sense of that outside of the context of, well, it's real. Like it seems real to me.
I do have another ghost story that's like pretty brief. So last summer I went to New Hampshire with like a bunch of my friends. We rented an Airbnb for the weekend. And we're there and we're like, this place is weird. But like nothing like that weird happens, whatever, the first night. And then the last night that we're there, we're like going through the guest book and we're like, this place seems really weird. Like all of this is weird. And we're sitting outside and there's like a fire pit and we're drinking. And I take this video of my friend. And like there's this, like we rewatch it and we're like, there's like a ghost in this. Like there's like this light and we like chalk it up to like, oh, it's just like the reflection of the fire, even though it like doesn't really make sense, but we're like, whatever. And then like,
oh my God,
it's the last night that we're there. So we're like not drinking like that much because we know we have to like leave the next morning like early. So we put the fire out. And when I say we put this fire out, I mean it was out. There was no question in my mind. We go to bed and I'm sleeping in the same bed as like my boyfriend at the time. And he's falling asleep and like we're talking. And all of a sudden it's like literally like he's like possessed. And he goes like, I don't like this place. I don't like this mountain that we're on. I'm like, like we
oh my God.
He's like when they come to kill us, no one's going to be able to find us. Like, what are you talking about? God. I have like the verbatim, like what he said, like written down on my phone because I like wrote it down right away. And I like shook him out of it and he had no recollection of saying it at all. And we freaked ourselves out and then we went and we slept on the couch. And our friend who was downstairs on the ground floor had this dream in the middle of the night that this woman was lighting the fire outside.
Oh my God.
And he woke up in a panic and the fire was still lit, like burning. We were like up and heard him doing it, but didn't know what he was doing. He said he had to get up to put the fire out 4 more times. He was having the dream.
Oh my God.
And I woke up in the morning and there were 70 pictures taken on my phone.
You've got to be kidding me.
This is all like, this is all 100% real. Like of blackness. But it's like
shut the front door. That is insanely bad luck. Like, holy fart balls. Jeez, that is like way more insane than anything that's ever happened to me.
We were actually terrified. Like, we still all talk about it sometimes. And we're like, that was crazy.
Oh, that's so scary. So I have gotten scared many times, but I don't really have anything where I'm like, that was supernatural. That was scary. I did have like crazy vivid dreams after my grandpa died last summer. Not this year, but the year before. That I've always felt kind of weird about, but they're not really scary. It's just sort of like, I couldn't tell if they were like grief dreams or if they were supernatural. The like one that was the weirdest, I might have told you about this before, but I don't remember. I was like standing in a room, but But it was sort of like, do you remember the Heffalumps and Woozles montage from the Winnie the Pooh movie? It was like that sort of situation. Like, it was like all black and like things were just sort of out of place, like weird around me. And there was a wall with like no ceiling or anything next to it, just like a wall with a telephone on it. And the phone started ringing, heavy metal, like ring, ring, ring. And I was like, okay. And I answer and I'm like, hello. And it's my grandmother on the other line. And she's like, hey, Moki, because that's her nickname for me. And I was like, in the dream, I knew that she had just died a few weeks ago. And I was like, hello, Graham? And she was like, yeah, what's going on? And I was like, how are you talking to me right now? And she goes, the same way you are, silly. And I was like, where are you? And then I like woke up. Like, I don't, it's like probably a grief dream, but it felt so weird. Like, I've never had a dream quite like that. I had a couple dreams where like she would be in them and I would be like, what are you doing here? And then I would always wake up like immediately after that. But that one was like very strange. It's weird because like she's the one who told me that she saw her husband after he died in her room. So I know that like she always believed in that kind of stuff. So it was like, I don't know. I've never been able to really make sense of it. It was just very strange. What I will say though is that my mother tells the story where when her dad died, because she was only 16 when that happened, she woke up in the middle of the night and looked at the clock and then went back to bed. And then the next day when she woke up and they told her that he had died overnight, he had died at the exact moment that she had woken up and looked at her clock. Like the time of death was the exact same time, which is very weird. Like that gives me very strange, but yeah, very spooky. I guess when it comes to the supernatural, I'm more inclined to believe in it in the sense of ghosts and things like that. Like I do think, I guess at this point, that there is something, there's like some other like what's dimension, like I think that there might be some other sort of dimension or something. Like since I've been listening to a bunch of podcasts over the past few months specifically about this kind of stuff, the sheer number of the stories of people who interact with loved ones after they die has kind of convinced me that there is something, or even like, you know, like what you were telling me where like you see a ghost and then you do research and you're like, wow, something crazy happened here. Like there's some sort of residual energy or something. Like that has kind of convinced me that there is something to these stories. Bizarre. I mean, and it's interesting because this kind of stuff pops up. It's like I was raised to not celebrate Halloween and not really follow spooky stuff because of my religion, but like Christianity is like entirely hinged on the idea that someone died and then came back to life. And so it's kind of crazy to be like, no, it can't happen anywhere else. I mean, obviously in Christianity, it's in the context of like Jesus literally came back to life. It's not that it wasn't a ghost according to Christian lore, but still, I mean, like the concept of angels coming down and being like, this is going to happen, like prophesying, and prophets are obviously a huge thing in Christianity. So it always seemed kind of weird to me that I was really raised to not believe in this stuff or not to be interested in it. But it's not necessarily because it wasn't true. Mm-hmm. It was sort of like, you're not to be interested in this. Like, don't even try. Like, it's a sin. Yeah. Like, almost like you're questioning God's authority. That makes me think about how like, so my dad, we talked about this in the last episode because we love talking about religion, and our parents was raised Catholic and he went to Catholic school for a while, and he told me that he went on a retreat or whatever, or away with his Catholic school kids, and like someone brought a Ouija board and he like told me this whole story about how like crazy stuff was happening. And so I don't know the details, but he was like, he told me it was his job to like make sure that like the demon went away. Like, have you ever played with a Ouija board? Yeah, I've never used one. There have been times in my life where I would be like, okay, if I had the opportunity, I would use one, but Nate is very against it, which, I mean, I'm not going to buy one because I'm too scared of them, but I mean, like, he's very against it. And so even in those moments where I was like, oh, I could do this, he was like, no, that is not going to happen. You can't do that. And basically, I think the rule of thumb is like, don't do it. I think that's the general consensus. I feel almost like that the idea of the paranormal should be more acceptable to talk about, and questions about it, I think, should be acceptable, especially if we accept conversations about religion and we're just like, oh, well, it's okay to believe in whatever you believe in. It should also sort of lend itself to conversations about the inexplicable that isn't attached to a doctrine. I don't really know anyone who doesn't have like some sort of weird story. Like you just had two crazy stories. And it's like, I feel like when you talk to anyone,
Yeah.
even the biggest skeptic, they still have like some weird story. And we're out.